Good morning, one and all. Hope I find you well. We're doing something slightly different today on the channel. If you will oblige me for a little while. Now, one thing that I think is wrong with education, and not just in this country, but is in across the world, is that we spend time talking about things. Especially in high school and things like that, that are really of no consequence. Like we've been through this, haven't we? The purpose of education and why people do it. The reason that they teach you about Pythagoras and stuff like that. And yes, you might use it in your job, but it's unlikely for the vast majority of people that we will. It's purely to test you, just to give you something to be tested on, essentially. It's to give you a broad knowledge of various subjects that might help you. But then it's really to be able to test you against other people, to differentiate people in terms of socioeconomic groups and social standing in general, really. And one of the things which I think is extremely lacking in education, and it's not just in this country, but as I said, across the world, is real world advice on things, like how to understand tax and inflation and interest rates and things like that. So I thought that we just have a quick chat about a topic, and we'll do this a couple of times on a few different subjects, just as a bit of a change as well, because we've been going hard at it now for a while, and I think this is very usable information because at the end of the day, probably most of you watching this, if you haven't already bought a house, you will hopefully buy a house in the future. But you probably don't know actually about it. So if you can lend me, 20 minutes of your time, let's just have a chat about literally the process of going through it, what some decisions that you're going to have to make, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so if that's all right, let's talk about how to buy a house. So I only recently bought my first house. I'm 28 now. I know I look a lot older, but I'm not. And I bought it. I've had the house for like 2 years now. So I bought it when I was 26. Now, that is obviously a very privileged position to be in that regard because, a hell of a lot of people won't be able to afford things. I just want to make sure that the volume on this isn't too high. I'll just turn it down a little bit. So the first thing you've got to think about when you're buying a house, right, is it's the first sort of grown-up thing you're going to do, despite, unless you've got a kid or you get married or something. But it's a really massive investment, in both, it's like really becoming an adult. So it's quite a daunting task, even if you've got a professional job or something like that, it's still something that you need to be worried about. So what you need to do to begin with is there's a couple of websites that can really help you out, and I'm going to show you them now. So one of the best ones that I've found is let's have a look at so it is called Zoopla. All right, and Zoopla, it looks like this. So it's just zoopla.co.uk. It looks like this. You can go on, and it looks at house prices basically in various bits of the country, and you can see how they're quite different from each other. So if we're to look like the northwest where we are, average paid prices are about 200 grand for a house. Now that takes into account everything from quite small, flats all the way up to, mansions, but the average in the area, and you can actually have a look. So southwest, we've got nearly 300,000, so it's nearly a third more expensive to live in the southwest. Northeast England is slightly cheaper. East of England is quite more expensive. East Midlands is slightly more expensive. South East England, quite a lot more expensive. And obviously, as you can see here, and as probably you already know, London is significantly more expensive, isn't it? It's nearly 3 times more expensive than living in the northwest, and that's probably because of the fact it's it's like a country in a country in London, isn't it? It's where everything happens. So first of all, you've got to decide where you want to live, and your earning potential will dictate that to a large extent, depending on how much money you have, if you're buying it with a partner. Very few people will be able to buy a house by themselves. They will need 2 professional incomes, and that's for a number of reasons, but essentially it's through economic changes over the last 100 years have meant that with women working a lot more now, it meant that inflation went up, really, which meant that the value of money went down in real terms because more money was available to people. House prices went up because people had more money to spend, and therefore, what you would have been able to have bought with one professional income now requires two professional incomes. So most people will require two professional incomes to purchase a property now, and it will be over quite a long period of time of when we're doing it. So once you've decided where you want to live, because a lot of it will be dictated by where you live already and things like that, and family, and maybe jobs and things like that. But when you've decided where you want to live, you've got to start having a look at actual houses. And Zoopla's really good at that for as well. And there are other houses, sort of all the other places specifically for this, Rightmove and stuff like that. But let's have a look at Preston. Okay, let's just have a look in Preston. Let's have a look what's going on there, because that's where we are based. Okay, so we can have a look, and you can just basically see the variety of things that are on offer. Okay, and it's quite surprising when you actually look at them and how significantly the change in price. So we've got here, and it depends on what you're getting for your money as well, because the price of the house is only worth what someone will pay for it. So it's important to remember that. And that's true about anything, isn't it? How much is anything worth? It's worth what someone else is willing to pay for it. So in this regard, when you look at how much houses are worth, it will come down to things like the area. It'll come down to things like the amenities in terms of what it's got, the amount of rooms it's got, and things like that. So if you look at this house, we've got a 4-bedroom end terrace here, and obviously the type of house as well. Whether it's a terrace, whether it's a detached or something like that. 4-bedroom terraced house, which terrace houses are quite big actually. We've got for 125 grand. And then we've got a 3-bedroom semi-detached house, but that shoots up to 186,000. This has got 1 bathroom, this has got 2 bathrooms, this has got 2 lounges, this has got 1 lounge. So even though this probably overall is slightly smaller, in fact, it'll be probably significantly smaller if it's got 4-bedroom versus 3. This one's more expensive, and it's probably just due to where it is. 2-bedroom terraced house, 4-bedroom semi-detached thingy. That's quite big. I think I know where that is. No, it isn't where I think it is. Anyway, so what you've got to decide is how much you want to spend. All right, so you're going to have pretty significant amount of, deposit to actually put down on these houses. So when we were looking at houses, went around and had a look at a couple of different ones, decided on a budget and things like that. Now, people cock the budget up. People make mistakes about budgets, and they make so many mistakes on applying for mortgages and things like that. So I wanted to show you what in real terms mortgages are like. So you can go on somewhere like Money Supermarket, and they will show you some basic stuff on here, and you can put some terms in and figure it out. So in terms of this is the big one. Okay, this is the massive one. The deposit is going to dictate so much of it, but deposits are hard to get. Like even 2 professional wages, it's hard to save money. I don't know if you're good at saving money yourself, but it's not easy. Like that I mentioned 30 grand deposit, £30,000. I don't know if you've ever had £30,000, but I definitely didn't have £30,000 to put down in the house. And remember, it's not just the deposit that you're going to need. You're going to need money to do the house up, essentially, or to buy furniture, or to buy a bed, or to buy a TV, or to buy anything, and the ongoing bills and stuff like that. Because when you buy a house, you've got solicitors' fees to things. But we'll talk about that in a second. So what's reasonable? Well, a lot of people, and over the last couple of years, obviously it's going to be different in the future because of this coronavirus thing and that, but it will go back to normal, hopefully. A lot of people were looking at sort of like 90%, 95% mortgages, and there was a time when you could get 100 and even over 100% mortgages, but that was far and away. That's not coming back, I don't think. So on this one, you've got to decide. So let's have a look. So if it's 180 grand, let's say we want to put down, we'll put down 4 grand. Oh, sorry, that's changed it because I've put it in. It's done it over here. There we go. So let's put a 4 down. That we obviously can't go with that because that's a 98% loan to value ratio, isn't it? So what we need to do is we need to at least go 95%, don't we? So what's 95% of that? That would be 6, wouldn't it? No, 8. I'm too tired here. I'm not thinking right. There we go. 9 grand. So, it's just affecting my thing because I've got the hotkeys on as well. That's why it's affecting the screen when I'm typing it on. So, we've got our 9 grand. Of course it is. Yeah, 5% of 180 grand, of course, is 9 grand. So, we've got our thing. And if you see up here, it says it makes your borrowing amount 171,000 and your loan to value ratio 95%. And then we've got to decide our mortgage term. So, we have a look at our mortgage term. And this is crazy because because of the value of properties now, they're giving you the opportunity to have really long amounts of time, and 20, most people who are watching this said I'm only 28, so if my first mortgage, the one that I just got, was 28 years, so it was literally my whole life again, which is quite daunting when you think of it, isn't it? So let's say 26 years. All right, so 26 years, and we want to go with repayment because repayment we're going to actually have to pay it off. Okay, so let's update our results and have a look at what's on offer. So, let's have a look at these. Now, you've got two options when you're looking at mortgages. You've got fixed rate and you've got variable rate. Now, variable rate is to do with the interest rate in the country and the interest rate which the Bank of England sets, essentially. We've talked about sort of monetary and fiscal policy, maybe not in great depth, but probably not on the channel, in fact, but we've probably talked about it in class. And if you're interested, then I can go into more detail, but give us a shout if you want to know any more about that. It's just about how we set interest rates basically in the country and use inflation to control things. But anyway, with this, you've got to decide how much is reasonable that you're going to be able to pay monthly. So if you go with a variable rate, that means that you, depending on the interest rates in the country, your payment can go up and go down. Now, for most people, that is going to be an issue, and that's why they've come up with fixed rate mortgages to give you more of a specific thing. Like I don't like the idea of not knowing at the end of the month what I'm going to pay. I like the idea of knowing exactly how much is going to come out of the account, so I can budget for it. But there are other people that will, if you've got a bit of extra money, I suppose it doesn't really matter, but your thing goes up and down all the time, and sometimes you'll be paying slightly more, sometimes you'll be paying slightly less. If interest rates go up, then you'll be paying slightly more. If interest rates was to go down, then you'd be paying slightly less. But the problem with that is the fact that interest rates are pretty damn low at the minute anyway in this country. They've been kept low for a very long time now. So realistically, they are going to go up. So it's a case of the problem with the fixed rate mortgages, if you go with a fixed rate, if you say, right, okay, I want to pay this amount and I'm going to pay this for how many years you want to do, you can do like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is you could potentially be paying more money. If the interest rate does drop, you've already decided to fix yourself in. And also, usually there is a product fee of a couple of grand or a grand or whatever that they want up front to actually do that for you. So you're already adding a little bit onto the mortgage as well. Luckily, you can actually add that on to the mortgage when you do it. But let's have a look at this. So you've got to decide. You'll have to do a budget, essentially, to find out how much you can reasonably afford. But if we wanted to go with this, we wanted to borrow 171 grand here over 26 years, then this is saying a 95% mortgage rate, we've got £745 a month. Okay. Initial rate of 2.49% and no product fees, which is good. So that means there's no initial thing for you to buy. But it says here 171,000 over 26 years, and it says the total amount payable, if you look at this bit here, it says 265,279, which is significantly more, isn't it, than what you actually set off to pay. That is the a true reflection of how much houses actually cost. Mortgages are not cheap things, because you're taking the money for so long, essentially. But as well, just notice this: it says you get your 36 months at 745, and then 276 months, which is the rest of the 26 years or 24 years after you've run out your 2-year thing. Sorry, it would have been 23 years, wouldn't it, because it's a 3-year discounted. Then it goes up to £863.56 at a variable rate, so it considerably increases. You've got to watch that. You've got to be really careful about it, because obviously it's got quite a big significance. If you got used to paying that, it's a big jump to be over £100 a month more to be paying. Okay. So you might be thinking, well, actually, Ryan, that seems quite reasonable. £745. Like, okay, well, I can earn that. I can earn thingies. The problem with it isn't the fact of how much you are able to get them to give you. Because a lot of people go to things and they'll have a look for some properties and they'll go, oh, look, a 3-bedroom semi-detached bungalow. That sounds good because I like that. Where's that? That's in Broughton. Broughton's a nice place. And let's have a look. Oh, look, it looks really nice. They've got a new kitchen and they've got all this space. Looks really, really nice, that, doesn't it? But, look, it's 230 grand. So if we were to go back to Money Supermarket, we're going to change this. We want to put 230 grand in. I said I'll change this back in a second so that you can see it properly. And we want to go for the same. So what would that be? 10%, 23. Let's bring it down a bit to that. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but I've changed it slightly. Is it showing you? Oops. So I don't know if you can see here, but I've changed it slightly. So if we went with a 23, if we had 23 grand to put down, we went with a 10% deposit, then it goes up to 830. But we've got £1,000 product fees as well. So, and then it goes up to £1,000 a month after the first couple of months, after the first 2-year fixed deal. So, can you see now we're steadily approaching £1,000, aren't we? £1,000 a month. Now, you'd have to have a look. I don't know if you've had a look at the sort of like if you're a student now looking at making decisions about stuff and you're not really sure about things like that. If you have a look at things like Money Saving Expert, Tax Calculator, then this can help you actually look at how much you are actually going to earn and make some decisions about budgets and things like that. Because a lot of people don't actually understand how much that physically is. So if we said, the average student's going to have, the average student graduate is probably going to start on about, let's say, about 21 How long's that been off? I hope that's not been off for very long. How much has that? How long has that been off for? Oh no, has that been off for a long time? I can't tell. Anyway, oh, it's really annoying that because I can't tell how far I need to go back and talk to you about. What can I do for you now? You know what? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop this a second and I'll restart the stream just because I want to check what I've missed. All right, because I realised that the mic was off a minute. All right, so just give us a second. I'm just going to cancel the stream. I will re-stream in a second. Okay, so just give me one moment.